Hi guys, so today we are going to be talking about Louis Zamperini, or Louis as many called him. Louis Zamperini was born January 26, 1917 in Olean, New York. As he grew up, he became a badly behaved boy. However, when he was 15 years old, his older brother Pete saw Louis' speed and tried to convince him to start running. Wanting to become a better person, Louis agreed to begin training with his brother, and just 4 years later, he was so good that he qualified to run in the 1936 Berlin Olympic Games. At the Olympics, he competed in the 5,000-meter run. In the end, he finished in 8th place, however, his final lap was 56 seconds. This was the fastest lap in the entire Olympic Games. On September 29, 1941, Louis enlisted into the Army. Just a few months later, Pearl Harbor was attacked, marking the beginning of the war for the U.S. On August 19, 1942, Louis was deployed to Ephrata, Washington. He and a crew of men were assigned to a B-24D aircraft. On April 18, 1943, they returned from a mission, and the B-24D had 594 holes in it. Yes, 594. Well, as you can guess, that was the end of that aircraft's flying days. On May 27, 1943, Louis Zamperini ran his fastest mile he had run, 4 minutes and 12 seconds. That very same day, he and a crew of men were assigned to a new aircraft called Green Hornet. That's when the devastation struck. As they were flying, the Green Hornet's 2 engines failed, causing them to have to prepare for a crash landing. In the end, only 3 out of the 10 men survived. Those 3 men, Louis, Phil, and Mac, climbed aboard their life rafts and began drifting. They could feel sharks underneath their rafts, and they even managed to kill some. Also, they managed to catch fish. They gratefully ate the fish and sharks' raw meat for food and drank rainwater. On day 27 of floating on the rafts, a Japanese bomber flew overhead. Seeing the men, the bomber began firing, but no men were injured. Heartbreakingly, however, on day 33, Mac grew too weak and he died. Then on day 47, they were rescued. Well, sort of. They were rescued but then captured. Captured by their enemies, the Japanese. The next month, the 2 men were transferred to Yokohama, Japan, and put in a prisoner of war camp. On September 30th, 1944, Louis was then moved to a new prisoner of war camp. There he met Motsuro Watanabe, nicknamed the Bird. The Bird knew that Louis was an Olympian athlete and chose to torment him horribly. He was beaten and tortured even worse than others. He labored long hours, and although the international law stated that prisoners were to be given meat once a week, all that Louis along with other prisoners received to eat was rice, sometimes mixed with rat poop. Louis was once a 155-pound man, but by this time Zamperini only weighed about 80 pounds. Prisoners were dying, but Louis pushed on. Then they took Louis to a radio station in Tokyo to tell the people in America that he was alive. However, it was to be used as a propaganda tool. They wanted him to continue broadcasting messages with untrue statements that they wrote, but Louis Zamperini refused. On February 28, 1945, Louis was again transferred to a new war camp. At least it meant that he could get away from the Bird who had treated him so terribly. But little did he know, the Bird had moved there as well, and so round 2 of torturing began. He worked hard each day and suffered tremendously, but he still persevered. And then, on August 6, 1945, an atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima, Japan, and 2 days later, another one was dropped on Nagasaki. Then the awaited day came. On September 4, 1945, the war officially ended. 13 days later, Louis went home after surviving a plane crash, 47 days on a floating raft in the ocean, and 2 years in captivity. However, he was not completely free yet. After arriving home, Louis struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder. He would have dreams about the Bird torturing him, but to Louis, it felt like more than a dream. It felt like reality. He was really struggling whether or not he wanted to admit it. Then, while taking a vacation in Florida, Louis met Cynthia Applewhite, and not long after, they were married. Indeed, Cynthia soon learned of Louis's struggles and was concerned. Also, Louis had become an awful alcoholic. Then, on October 20th, 1949, Louis attended a Billy Graham revival, and there he remembered a promise he made to God as he was floating on the raft. "If you save me, I promise to serve you forever," he had said. That night, he gave his life to Christ, and his life was completely transformed. For the first time in 5 years, he did not have nightmares. He was free at last, but still he had something to do. In the September of 1950, Louis Zamperini went back to Japan to see the guards who had hurt him and held him captive. He traveled to the Sugamo prison where they were and talked to them and embraced them in hugs, and he forgave them. There was one person missing from the group though, and that was the bird. He wasn't there, but Louis had forgiven him in his heart. Louis went on to share his story of perseverance, courage, struggle, and forgiveness and redemption to others. Also, when he was in his 80s, he got the privilege of carrying the Olympic torch. On July 2, 2014, Louis Zamperini died at an old age of 97. Truly, his life has touched the hearts of so many, and I hope it touched yours too. Thank you.